Hey, good morning. Welcome back to Mike's Diabetes World. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're doing that. Current blood sugar. Well, wasn't as stellar as last night, but it's still okay. Current blood sugar is 8.2. Calibration is still strong. I did that last night. I forgot to calibrate before bed, so the alarm went off saying, calibrate me, calibrate me. So I've come down. I had a few more corrections during the night than the night before. Can't speak today. All right, I dropped down to 8.1 now, so that's better. We are 66 time in range. This is not a good day, but we pick up and we keep trying. 34% was above 10, 66% was time in range, and 8 or 9.2 is the average sugar in millimoles per liter. So this is telling me that something is wrong. Well, we know I'm still feeling a little rough, so this has a lot to do with it. What's Dr. Glaucomflecken? Pretty good. Today I want to talk to you about burnout and how it can really affect you and those around you. I've talked to this before, but I just feel like we need to revisit it. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back. This channel is provided for informational purposes only. Contact your physician for any diagnostic or treatment plan. Burnout. I don't know if I suffered the traditional burnout scenario. I think a lot of what I had came from sort of a headstrong teenager who didn't want to be told what to do. I went to my doctor back then with my urine test results. I had got a new typewriter. I had sat there and I had typed it all out, made it nice. And then I went there and he pretty well gave me crap. It was partly because the urine tests weren't working correctly. It could have been bad, test strips, whatever, but it just was not working well. But whatever, he pretty well yelled at me saying, "You're gonna control diabetes this way." Looking back, now on a more mature, I can see where he was sort of coming from, but on the other hand, I don't think he did it in the correct way. But there are people who suffer and try to combat insulin control and getting their blood sugars normal and doing all they have to do. Back then, we didn't have all these gadgets. You had to have a record, and you had to almost like, well, you had low there, you had to draw an arrow and write a reason here, and it was graphs, and you had to keep your graphs, and you had to keep things up to date, and if you didn't, you were yelled at, and I thought, oh, well, I'm not going to take this crap. And that started my role of not taking care of myself. I went through most of my teenage years that way until my early 20s, 23, 24, when I started saying I was tired of having all these high blood sugars, and by that time, my sugars were off the charts. I can tell you now. Yeah, and whose fault was that? I think that was sort of the turning point. I also was sent to an endocrinologist, and I had this endocrinologist for the good part of 20 years. And she backed me up. I was accused of taking extra insulin because my body wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So really, why do people get burned out? Well, there's so much information. I feel I had an excuse. Wasn't a good excuse, but I had an excuse. I never thought I could go get another doctor. But things happen. So, I probably did a little bit of damage here or there. The higher blood sugars definitely did some damage to me. It was just easy. You could just give insulin and your blood sugar would go down. Payday, I'd go to we have a steak restaurant out here called The Keg. It was big. It still is fairly big out here. And I would order a steak for lunch. But I never took correct insulin for it. It really threw me for a loop, but I didn't really care. I could take some insulin later to straighten it out. Instead of taking blood sugars, figuring out carb counting was still not really here. It was still pretty much food choices was back then, and I really didn't want to read about it. For years, I coasted along, just getting sick, going to the hospital, being released. Part of my headstrongness went with, the teenagers. I don't want to do this. Yes, I would eat whatever I wanted. I would go to bed high, I'd be up all night peeing, but that was just life. And I met this new endocrinologist, and for the first time, I honestly felt like she was on my side. I once again tried to obtain control. And this time it stuck. For whatever reason, I got back on the straight and narrow. Clarissa Wallace did a wonderful job with me. And since that time, I've now moved on to a new endocrinologist, and I tried to do the best I can with him. But there is some turning point. I think people who feel burnout don't necessarily get to that point without help. I've done a video where I suggested doing digestible chunks. Don't worry about every 1,000 million things about diabetes out there. Do it in little digestible chunks. I believe that's something they can work towards, but they still need help in doing it. There are people out there to help. Don't worry about who you're doing it for. Do it for you. Work on taking your shots every day. And then once you start doing that, work on watching what you're eating. And do it as accomplishments. Some people just can't handle being given everything and saying, here, do it. I also feel, and in some cases, not everyone, but I feel sometimes burnout can be a curtain or a veil to hide behind. It's easier not to do anything than to control your diabetes. Now, burnout can happen for type 1, type 2. Some people, boom, they're off and they have control and they've done wonderful life. Others of us really tried hard to understand what goes on and how we can better grow in our diabetes life. Hell, I still make mistakes, but I try. I do my best every single day. You should do it. If you find you need help, go talk to your doctor. Saying so much I don't understand, I can't do it, I can't focus on it. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. People around you may shun you because, well, why don't you just do it? But they're not important. It's up to you. And getting the help to go that far. Now, diabetes and you being burned out and not handling it well can have a social effect on friends and family. You don't want that. You want to be able to get out there, live your life. You don't want to have the worries of diabetes. I had some burnout. I wasn't drastic, but I can be glad somewhere along the line the light switch turned on, and after many attempts to try to turn the light switch on, it stuck. And I learned so much more about diabetes and how to care for it. Remember that you're not alone. There are other type 1 diabetics. There's a medical team that you can build up. You can have an endo of your choice. You can have your family doctor, a pharmacist that you choose. And you can have any other doctors you need. All want to put your life first. Some people may feel they're a write-off, and they're not. If you need help, get it, because you're important. And we talk about your diabetes, getting it under control. Burnout is real. Contact your doctor if you need help. With that, have a great day. Bye now. My email is mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com. mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com.